I listened to Joe Rogan and Roger Avary yesterday, and it was a fascinating conversation. Roger Avary is Quentin Tarantino's writing partner, and he's got some wild opinions. What I loved to hear from him was his breakdown of different movies. This man clearly loves cinema, and he has some very interesting opinions about, how things are made, what stories are, and it was very interesting to hear him talk about it. He starts off the conversation talking about Citizen Kane and a very interesting and intricate shot, technically, about how they were able to move the camera through space while still keeping focus of an individual through a window, going through the window, and having, the camera all done in one shot. I thought that was fascinating, and it shows just behind the scenes how these types of things are made. As the conversation progressed, though, it became a little bit darker. And he said at some point that everything is an illusion and everything is a lie. And I didn't quite understand what he was talking about until he dove deep into several conspiracy theories, which I love a good conspiracy theory. I think it's fascinating. But I think that it would be very hard to be Roger Avary if you truly believe some of the things he was saying. For example, he spoke about how all of our history is essentially fake, that 1,000 years were added to our historical timeline in order to justify certain land grabs, and that the fall of Rome happened at the same time of the Inquisition, Charlemagne was made up, and stuff like that. Now, I find this extremely fascinating and extremely interesting. But again, if a person cannot align themselves with a sense of truth, then it becomes very hard to lead a life. Because if everything is untrue, what does it actually mean to be a person? You have thoughts, you have feelings. And Avary was actually very specific about trusting your own experiences and your own, eyes. And he spoke a lot about flat Earth and he and Joe had a very deep, heated discussion about the realities of flat Earth. And Roger's point was, your experience of Earth will always be flat. And Joe's point was, well, they got pictures of Earth and it looks pretty round to me. Avary said, no, it's not round, that's just a fisheye lens. But again, like any good conspiracy, he's, conspiracy theorist, he doesn't say, oh, I believe in flat Earth. He says, I'm just saying, prove me wrong. I don't believe in flat Earth, but prove it wrong. Which is always a good position to have, because you can't actually be proven wrong if you don't take a stand about what you believe. And I feel like if you don't align with yourself with even a sense of truth, then you're like a rudderless boat drifting on the sea. Where do you go? What do you believe? If everything is a lie, why do you even live? Again, I found it very odd that Avary had a wedding ring on, because it must mean that you believe in something. You believe in holy matrimony, as it were. I think that a sense of truth is very important for an individual in this life. And truth is something that is increasingly hard to come by, because we are fed a lot of disinformation, a lot of misinformation, a lot of untruths in this world. And that's okay. But aligning yourself with this chaos makes nothing good and nothing evil. Just an amorphous blob of bullshit. Which again, if I were in Avery's shoes, I would find it hard to function. And indeed, during this conversation, I felt very disoriented and confused. Now, this is not to say that you should just blindly believe whatever people tell you, because that is clearly not a good way to live either. But there must be some balance between finding that truth and also being skeptical of what people say. Because what people say, of course, is not always true. Even if they believe that it is true, it does not make it true at all. And two people can have the same experience, the same, let's say, truthful experience, and experience it completely differently. Why? Because they have different perspectives. They have different lives. They've had different experiences in the past, which educate them on their current experiences. But I will say, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It was entertaining as fuck. It was very interesting. And I find these types of conversations to be very important, even if they do devolve into slight anti-Semitic tropes, like Mossad conducting 9/11. I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying it's weird that the Israelis were dead. I'm just saying. Again, as a Jew, it's very painful to hear those type of things. But I can understand where people are coming from. And I think it is important for people to be able to say that the things they believe and experience. Why? Because if we start regulating how people think and speak, we become a robotic nation, an AI, a ChatGPT with limits. And it's very important to have a diverse set of opinions. And not only to have a diverse set, but to accept the conversations that come our way and to enjoy the differences of opinions of others. Because this is how we learn. This is how we grow. This is how we continue to evolve and get better ideas. We don't get better ideas in silence. We get better ideas in the light. Thank you, Joe Rogan, for providing a wonderful platform for all types of individuals to think, to speak, to converse. I love it. Have a great day.